Loki smirked triumphantly as he walked through the halls of his underground base, Pinkie Pie following him loyally at his side. Discord was off in his own chamber playing with his chocolate rain and the other mad things he would use to bring Midgard underneath their control. Loki smiled as he imagined the glorious rule of chaos over the two realms. With Discord's chaos creating powers, Loki's extensive magic abilities, and the army of the Chitauri at their disposal, how could they not win? The Chitauri greatly respected the Dragon QS and their kind. So, it was not that hard for Discord to convince them to give their numerous troops to their cause. Unfortunately, since he and Discord would be launching separate attacks at the same time, Loki could not rely on the Dragon QS magic to teleport the Chitauri to his desired location. Once again, the God of Mischief would need to make another portal. He had been able to consult a weak portal to Equestria through some of the Transac energy retrained in his staff. But he would need much more to recreate the portal he had made atop Stark Tower. Sir, one of the scientists called. Loki briskly strolled to the man, his green eyes fixed on the monitor before him. Displayed on the screen was a miniature-sized green crystal with many faces. This crystal will be able to magnify your staff's power enough to create the portal you desire, my lord, the scientist explained. It's currently in a very secure holding facility out in the New Mexico desert. Great work, Doctor, Loki commented. He turned to the pink pony beside him. Do you believe you can retrieve this, Miss Pie? The pink pony nodded. Any hint of laughter on her face was gone. Yes. Loki smirked. Is there anything you will require? Pinkie tapped her hoof to her chin and thought. I'll need a distraction. And a party cannon. Natasha's Quidjet soared high above the city, the city's following the huge streak left in the sky by Tony. Soon enough, they were over the towns close to the site of the attack. Twilight, Applejack, and Bruce glazed anxiously at the ground, searching for their good friend. Hey, I see him! Tony announced into the comlink. Some of the images inside of the helmet appeared on the Quidjet screen, showing a very faded Captain America strolling casually down the street. Great job, Mr. Stark, Applejack replied. We'll be down there as soon as we can. She turned to the unicorn beside her. You ready, Twi? Yep, Twilight answered. Applejack smiled before facing Bruce and Natasha. Y'all stay here in the jet. Natasha, land the plane only if we need backup. Bruce, you only need to come out if we need the other guy's help. Both humans nodded in understanding. Bruce slightly relieved that he wouldn't have to let the other guy loose unless it was an emergency. The tiniest of smiles flicked across Applejack's face as she walked over to Twilight. The purple unicorn screwed up her face in concentration. Her horn began to glow pink. In a flash, Twilight Applejack teleported down to Tony's side of the street. Most of the people had gone inside at the news of the attack in the nearby city, but a few people were still out, staring intricately at the Iron Man and the two colorful ponies that had appeared right next to him. Gee, what do you guys do? Stop for snacks? Tony commented dryly. Sorry, Mr. Stark, Twilight apologized. Just needed to go over a few last minute instructions. Hey, Twi, Tony, there he is. Applejack quickly gusted to the faded man on the street, strolling along as if he didn't care there was a war going on, which he probably didn't. Okay, you two have to pin him down long enough for me to do the memory spell, Twilight instructed. Tony shrugged. Well, that's easy. Turning his rockets on full power, he blasted over to the captain, tackling the super soldier and pushing him down against the sidewalk. Steve struggled against Tony. What do you think you... The captain trailed off upon seeing who was pinning him. You! He spat viciously. With a quick twist of his body, Steve angled himself perfectly to drive a solid knee into Tony's groin. Even though the area was protected by the Iron Man suit, it still hurt like heck, causing Tony to lose his grip on Steve just enough for the super soldier to wiggle away and begin sprinting down the street. Well, that didn't work, Tony wheezed as he struggled to his feet. Twilight looked at Tony in concern before turning to Applejack. All right, guess it's time for Plan B. Tony waved him off, leaning against the wall. You guys go. I think I'll stay here for a moment. Twilight and Applejack nodded before galloping after the captain. Within a few moments, they had nearly caught up to him, the duo only a few feet away. Applejack whipped out another rope, giving the end to Twilight keeping the other in her mouth. Yeehaw! She cried. She shouted. The shout was slightly muffled by the rope. The orange pony leapt high into the air, flinging her end of the rope toward Steve. It caught around the captain's midsection, pulling tight. Unfortunately, it only seemed to slow the super soldier down instead of stopping him as they wanted. Applejack, pull! Twilight shouted, yanking hard on the rope. Applejack grabbed the rope again with her teeth, tugging at it with all her might. This seemed to be effective. The captain was slowly being dragged in the other direction. He was still struggling, however, and was putting up an extremely good fight at that. Applejack! Twilight called, beads of sweat dripping from her forehead. I'll never be able to perform the spell on him like this. We need a plan C. Applejack grunted in response, trying to think. I got it, she finally announced. Twi, pull as hard as you can toward the post, then let go of the rope. Twilight, though slightly confused, obeyed. Applejack did the same, and their combined forces was enough to send the captain flying backwards into the post. The rope whirled around him, securing him tightly to the pole. Applejack, Twilight smiled at each other, breathing heavily. Great work, Twi, Applejack panted. Twilight grinned tiredly. Thanks. The purple unicorn stepped towards the captain, who was struggling furiously against his bonds. Let me go, Steve demanded. I don't want to be with you losers. Twilight just shook her head and began to concentrate. I don't need you or the Avengers. Leave me Steve was cut off as Twilight's horn started to glow with a rosy light, and his mind was suddenly bombarded with memories. Steve sat inside a Quidjet, being briefed on the Avengers by Agent Coulson. Steve smiled as he shook hands with Dr. Banner for the first time on the landing pad of the helicarrier. Decked out in his new suit, Steve gazed at both Thor, Tony, in a dismembered forest clearing. Are we done now? He asked, following Tony through the wreckage of one side of the helicarrier. Steve swaying from one platform to another, determined to help fix the engine. Steve stood on a pile of rubble, his fellow Avengers standing beside him as they started deflecting at the Chitara. They all turned to the captain as he began to call out instructions. Inside the restaurant, Steve beamed as he began to eat his sandwich, enjoying the company of the Avengers, his teammates, allies. But most importantly, friends. Applejack beamed as Twilight's spell finished. The color was slowly returning to the captain, his suit flooding with red, white, and blue. Steve blinked a few times, absolutely puzzled. What happened? He questioned softly. He had then stared down at his binds. And why am I tied to a lamppost? Applejack chuckled. We'll have a lot of explaining to do, Captain. A rather satisfied smirk flickered across Pinkie Pie's face as she gave Loki the captured crystal. 2 more guards flanked her on either end, both with an electrical blue eyes of the Tesseract. Loki had managed to turn them to their side upon entry to the facility. Really, though, the mission was far too easy. Pinkie's party can easily blew away the security door while Loki distracted and defended the guards. Excellent work, Miss Pie, Loki complimented as he placed the emerald into a secure bag. This shall make our task far easier. The pink pony smiled at the statement, not her usual laughing smile, but a mean, wicked one, matching that of her master. Suddenly, a blue streak flashed across the sky, followed by a large black jet. Pinkie Pie immediately recognized the shades of Rainbow Dash's armor, and one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s quid-jets. Loki, she alerted, gusting up at the figures. It's those Avengers and the other ponies. Ah, Loki nodded. Take care of them, you 3. Make sure they do not follow. The 2 guards nodded, pulling out their guns. Pinkie whipped out her bow and prepared one of her confetti arrows. Okie dokie, Loki. Her electric blue eyes trained on the blue form streaking across the sky before firing. Loki grinned maliciously at the 3 minions before stepping onto a stolen helicopter to watch the inevitable battle below. Clint piloted the Quidjet right over the facility, observing the sand-covered ground below. Rainbow Dash streaked ahead of the jet, a flash of blue across the landscape on the ground. Clint could see the small pink form of a pony, her bow strung with one of the arrows. Pinkie fired, and it took Clint only a short moment to realize the intended target. Dash, move to the right. One of Pinkie's arrows is coming towards you. Clint stayed into the comlink. Rainbow Dash nodded. Seriously, what's an arrow going to do to... The Pegasus was cut off as the sound of an explosion filled the air. All the occupants of the Quidjet stared out the window to see Rainbow Dash spinning out of control. A multicolored cloud not a few yards away. The Pegasus shook her head, sighing and woozy. Whoa. Dash, get to the ground. We're on the way, Clint ordered. He then turned to the other occupants. Okay, Rarity, Fluttershy, do your best to help Dash get Pinkie Pie back in her right mind. It might be difficult, but it's possible. I'll see what aerial support I can give you guys. And Thor, you need to see if you can find Loki. Agreed, Thor replied. The hatch of the Quinjet opened, and the god of thunder leapt out, closely followed by Rarity and extremely nervous Fluttershy. Thor landed right beside Rainbow Dash. Loki smirked as he watched his former brother survey the area. With a smirk, the god of mischief created several clones on the ground to fight Thor. The god of thunder immediately charged into battle with the clones, unaware that the real Loki was actually high above him. Oh, Thor, when will you ever not fall for this? Loki laughed in the helicopter as he began to fly away. Meanwhile, Dash and Rarity had engaged in combat with the two human guards. Rarity petted one facing her with gems, occasionally diving or flipping to dodge some of the attacker's bullets. Dash was making the best use of her repulsors, firing energy blast after blast at the guards. Fluttershy had, as usual, cowered behind a fallen box, surveying the scene with terrified eyes. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the ground. Sand swirled everywhere, along with colorful bits and pieces of confetti. When the dust cleared, Pinkie Pie stood in the middle of it all, her party cannon at her side, and a wicked grin on her face. The blast had thrown Rainbow Dash and Rarity high into the air, knocking the unicorn unconscious and making the Iron Mare a bit more than woozy. Thor stumbled a bit, losing his footing as he battled the Loki clones. Pinkie had also knocked out her two guards, but she didn't seem to care. Even Clint on the Quinjet was rocked by the explosion. Pinkie pushed the party cannon aside and approached the trembling yellow Pegasus, whose hiding place had been blown away from the explosion. "Well, hello, Fluttershy," Pinkie greeted spitefully. Fluttershy gazed up at Pinkie Pie, a little more than angry with the pink pony. She rose to her hooves, her teal eyes narrowed in absolute rage. "You big meanie!" she shouted, flying up into the air with all the might the Pegasus could muster. Fluttershy thrust her hind legs forward, making direct contact with the pink pony's chest. Pinkie was sent spiraling, her bright fuchsia head smashing into the ground and effectively knocking her out. Rarity and Rainbow Dash made their way over to Fluttershy. "Wonderful job, darling," Rarity commented, her head still spinning from the party cannon blast. "Yeah," Rainbow Dash agreed. "I think you knocked the Loki right out of her." Pinkie's porn farm shuddered, her head lifting a few inches off the ground. "Cupcakes? Loki? Party cannon?" She mumbled incoherent as her eyes crackled open for a quick moment before the pink pony fell back against the sand, unconscious once more. Chapter 7. Every day, I'm discording. Pinkie Pie woke up to a world of colors. Everything around her seemed to be a blur of pinks, blues, and greens. Something she would have laughed at if her brain didn't feel like oatmeal. What happened?" she asked, shaking her head comically like a dog to clear her mind. Hawkeye watched the pink pony awaken from the floor of the bed. Noting that this was the same room he had woken up in after Loki had taken control of his mind. "We got you back," he answered simply. "Oh." Pinky replied, pushing herself into a sitting position. Her hair was still stick straight, including her mood, but the electric blue tint to her eyes had disappeared. Loki, did he... He left before we could catch him, Clint stated solemnly. Apparently Thor fought duplicates of him. The real Loki was actually somewhere far away. That big meanie pants! Pinky exclaimed hotly. He went inside my head and made it all mumbo-jumbo inside of there. She trailed off, suddenly recalling what she had done to Rarity and Rainbow Dash. Oh my gosh, she shouted, rushing over to Clint with her eyes bulging in worry. Is Rarity okay? What about Dashy and Fluttershy? Are they alright? I mean, I think my Pinky sense would have been able to tell me, but I think Loki might have messed with that too. And whoa, slow down. They're all fine. Clint cut her off with a chuckle. Pinky saw the grin on his face and couldn't help but beam happily. Soon, the pink pony was giggling madly at her own antics, her magenta hair frizzing back up again. Clint gazed at her, a thin smile forming on his lips. Now, you look like yourself. He stood up, helping Pinky to her hooves. Oh, we brought back the party cannon, he added. Super duper! Pinky cheered as the two walked out of the room. Though I still can't believe I used the party cannon for evil. I mean evil! She emphasized the word, her eyes bulging with the syllables. Parties should never be evil. They should be fun and happy with lots of cake, balloons, streamers, and party hats and confetti and... Pinky! Pinkie Pie's rant was cut off by the unicorn from down the hall. Rarity sprinted towards the party pony, pulling her into a huge hug. Oh, darling, I'm so glad you're all right, she exclaimed. How are you feeling? Pinky shrugged, like I've broken the fourth wall too many times, but I'm good. Both Rarity and Hawkeye could do nothing but blink in confusion. Rarity, Clint, and Pinkie Pie joined the others in the debriefing area. Pinkie was immediately engulfed into a hug from the other ponies, all very happy she had recovered. We're glad you're back to being yourself, Sugar Cube, Applejack stated once the hug had broken apart. Aw, thanks every pony. Pinky giggled. Twilight smiled at her pink friend. Well, now that Pinky, Rarity, and Clint are here, we can begin. She walked over to the large glass table, surveying the people and ponies gathered around. Fluttershy sat beside Dr. Banner, nervously glancing down at the floor. Rainbow Dash had changed her suit back into the vest and was now pacing impatiently near Tony Stark, who had also taken off the Iron Man suit and was standing near the end of the table. Applejack took a seat beside Steve at the table. The captain had been rather upset upon learning of Discord's incident, how he had treated his teammates. But once Applejack had reassured him it happened to all of them in the past, and that there was really nothing he could have done, he had to resolve to forget about it and focus more on the troubling matters at hand. All right, Steve began, rising to his feet. We need a plan of attack. No offense, Capsicle, Tony interrupted, but we can't really form a plan of attack if we don't know where Discord and Loki will attack. Oh! Pinky suddenly burst out. Loki wanted to get some sort of crystal thingamajig. The people said it would magnify his power enough to recreate a portal thing. A portal? Bruce mused, tapping his pen thoughtfully against his chin. Loki wants to build another portal, but since he doesn't have the Tesseract, he needs to magnify whatever power he has, consult a stable one. Tony finished for the scientist. Pardon me for asking, Applejack remarked, but why does this Loki need to build a portal? He doesn't he see any of I didn't see any of the portal things during the last battle. Applejack's right, Twilight seconded. The Chitara didn't seem to need a portal from the last attack. Excuse me, Rarity interjected, but I believe we should be focusing on how we are to fend off the next attack, not this absurd portal business. Natasha nodded. Rarity's right. Our main policy should be how we are going to defeat Loki and Discord. A murmur of argument swept across the table, everyone bringing their attention back to the main topic. Twilight, you seem to know Discord best, Steve remarked. What's his play? Twilight sighed. Discord's completely unpredictable. His plans are as unexpected and erratic as chaos itself. A few grumbles of concern filled the room. Steve began to rub his temples. He did not like not knowing how the enemy was going to attack. He was always a man with a plan, and facing an unpredictable enemy like Discord really threw him off his guard. Rainbow Dash groaned, turning to face the group. You know, for the Avengers, we do a lot more discussing than we do avenging, she remarked dryly. I say we just find Discord and Loki and beat them to a pulp. I don't believe that's a good idea, Dash, Applejack said. Oh, on the contrary, Miss Applejack, I believe that's a wonderful idea, Tony countered, stepping near to Rainbow. You know, I think we should just skip the whole plan of attack business and just use my favorite plan. What, attack? Steve questioned, because that worked great the last time. You know, I really don't appreciate the sarcasm, Tony rebuked. Natasha shook her head, standing up. Guys, we really shouldn't be arguing right now. Oh, lighten up, Agent Romanoff, Tony chimed, smirking playfully. Now look here, Mr. Stark. I ain't appreciating your casualness, Applejack said. We have a job to do, so let's get it done. Oh, come on, AJ, Rainbow Dash sighed. Can't we just relax? Applejack brought her face up to Rainbow's, glaring directly at the Pixies. We need a plan. Rainbow Dash pushed Applejack back. You're wasting our time. You think you can push me around just because you have some fancy metal suit contraption? Applejack asked hotly. Well, what about you? Rainbow retorted. All you have is a shield and lasso. Are we really going to stoop so low as having petty arguments? Rarity inquired disbelievingly. Twilight agreed with the white unicorn and was trying her best to interrupt and stop the several quarrels beginning to break out. Ugh, she groans after several failed attempts. Why won't any pony listen to reason? No one seemed to hear her. Tony and Steve were trying their best to get Applejack and Rainbow Dash to back down, their attempt miserably failing. The two ponies were in a shouting match, their competitive spirits getting the better of them once more. Hawkeye and Natasha were bickering with Thor after one of the agents had made a comment about Asgard that the God of Thunder did not quite agree with. Pinkie Pie had bounced over to Bruce. The doctor was doing his best to soothe a shaking Fluttershy, and Twilight and Rarity were running around like mad trying to get some pony to calm down. It was it was because of that no one could notice the black feet on the horizon coming to interrupt the helicarrier. Discord smirked maliciously as he flew across the small of Chutara. He had teleported. Everything was going according to their plan, and soon both Midgard and Equestria would fall under the rule of chaos. With a lazy snap of his fingers, Discord set his focus into motion. His forces into motion. Two massive leviathans began circling the helicarrier, dropping several Chutara warriors onto the deck. The Dragon QS chuckled with glee as the Chutara blasted their way inside the floating airship. This was going just perfectly. A sudden blast rocked the helicarrier, starring the arguing Avengers and ponies to silence. "What in tarnation was that?" Applejack asked worriedly. Natasha and Clem immediately ran to the bridge of the helicarrier, everyone else directly behind them. "Director!" Natasha called. "What's going on?" "Someone's trying to attack the helicarrier, that's what," Nick answered stormily, gazing at the monitors. Security footage showed the Chutara flying various sectors of the ship, and two Leviathans surrounding the perimeter. Steve immediately turned to his companions. "Get ready and move out." The reaction from the teammates was instantaneous. Tony raced to the suit room to suit up, Rainbow Dash right at his heels. Thor sprinted off towards the exit to the deck, closely followed by a galloping Twilight. Pinkie Pie followed Hawkeye to the right exit. Natasha and Rarity dashed to the main room where the Hulk cage had once been. Applejack centered to the left side of the ship, tapping her hat to the captain before passing through the door. Fluttershy had immediately dove into a closet, Dr. Banner following her in. "I'll stay here unless you need the other guy to make another mess." Steve nodded, putting his helmet on. "Well, we'll call you if we need you," he reassured the doctor before racing off after Applejack. Tony swiftly stepped into the suit platform, the yellow robotic arms pulsing and waiting. "Jarvis," he called, "deploy." Immediately, the arms went into motion, affixing the latest development of the Iron Man suit onto his body. Rainbow Dash watched for a moment in fascination before tapping the blue lightning bolt on her vest. More whirling and clicking filled the air as the blue Iron Man suit sprung to life out of the vest. The two suit up almost spontaneously. The circle and lightning bolt in their chest glowing brightly. The two raced out of the hangar, blasting into the sky. "Aw, yeah!" the Pegasus cheered. Suddenly a voice crackled to life in their ears. "Stark, Dash, do you copy?" Steve asked through the comlink. "I hear you, Capsicle," Tony responded with a smirk. "Y'all need to take down those Leviathans," Applejack stated. "From what we can tell, that's where Chutara are coming from." Rainbow Dash gave a swift nod. "On it." Bruce and Fluttershy listened intently through their comlinks as the battle proceeded. The shouts and calls of their teammates and friends could be heard, giving them an idea of what was happening outside of their closet. "I've got a squadron down in the main room with Rarity," Natasha stated. "It's not too many, though. We should be able to handle it. Pinkie and I are stationed in a set of windows, shooting down a few heading towards the bridge," Hawkeye informed them. "Fury, Watch your back. Will do, Barton, the director replied briskly. A few minutes later, Rainbow Dash's excited whooping sounded through their earpieces. Tony, Tony and I have finally brought down one of those leviathans. Excellent work, Dash, Steve complimented. Keep it up. Several moments of pure bow noises followed. Hey, Twi, Applejack called, breaking the silence. Yes, Applejack, the voice of the pink unicorn answered. Purple unicorn answered, sorry. The captain and I could use your help. The cow pony replied. There's a group of dancing buffalo ahead of your way. Tony groaned. Not the buffalo. Twilight giggled at Tony's response. We'll be right there. A trickling whoosh soon followed, indicating to Bruce and Fluttershy that Twilight had successfully teleported to the location. Is that a bunny stampede? Clint's voice asked, surprised. Natasha confirmed the answer. Yes, Clint, that is a herd of rampaging rabbits. They are headed our way. Pinky? Pinky, Clint, would you two be dares and get them away from us? Rarity shouted into the comlink. Suddenly, Fluttershy had an idea. Pinky? Clint, can you hear me? Yepper yippee, Pinky answered. Oh, good, Fluttershy stuttered. Well, regarding the bunnies, fire a few of your cake arrows away from Natasha and Rarity. The rabbits should go after them. Bunnies only stampede if they're hungry. A moment of silence occurred as the two archers processed the information and extended the shrug. Thanks, Shy. Thanks, Shy. Clint's voice stayed through the comlink. It worked. Bruce smiled gently at the yellow Pegasus. I didn't know you were good with animals. Oh, yes. I love working with little critters, she replied softly. They are really supportive and always... Fluttershy was cut off by the director's crackled voice through the comlink. Team, a few Chitauri have leaped into the bridge. Natasha was the first to reply. Director, do you need... Whatever the Blackwell was going to say was drowned out in the din as the blast of energy at the door of the closet where Bruce and Fluttershy was. The door, being a S.H.I.E.L.D. standard issue door, only received a minor dent, but the blast was enough to make the pair angry. Very angry. Tony and Rainbow Dash whipped around the helicarrier, a leviathan right on their tails. Pull up! Tony commanded. Rainbow nodded. Swiftly angling her wings and shooting skyward, the leviathan attempted to follow the Pegasus's movements, but at a much slower pace. This gave Tony enough time to shoot a few missiles into the beast's open underside, and within a few moments, the leviathan exploded in a fiery cloud. Great work, Tony, Rainbow commented before turning to her earpiece. Guys, Leviathan 2 is down. Good, Nick stated, his tone forceful. We need you to hear stat. The Hulk has been unleashed. Wonderful, Tony remarked dryly. Bring the jolly green giant up to the deck. More room to play. Wait, Rainbow interrupted, concerned. What happened to Fluttershy? She's with me, darling, Rarity answered. Apparently what happened made her quite angry. She's tearing through the Chitauri ranks as we speak. Team, we have another situation. Twilight's voice crackled through the comlink. I just spotted Discord on the deck. A sudden idea flashed through Tony's mind. All right, Miss Sparkle, you and Dash get his attention, he instructed. I have a plan. Rainbow Dash, after Tony informed her of the plan, swooped down onto the deck of the helicarrier, her mask folding back to reveal her face. The Pegasus landed with a clank. Trotting over to where Twilight stood, the two mares observed Discord from behind a jet. The Dragon QoS was having a fantastic time causing chaos on the ship. flicking his paw and turning the Quidjet a bright shade of pink, for no apparent reason. Ah, he crackled. Chaos is a magnificent thing. Not so fast, Discord, Twilight shouted, spiraling from her hiding spot with Rainbow Dash at her side. Discord shook his head. Ugh, not you again, he groaned. What do you want this time? You do realize that stopping me is rather pointless, right? Not quite, Twilight corrected. Rainbow nodded, furiously with a smile flicking across her face as she saw a large shadow moving behind Discord. The Dragon QS was completely unaware of it. Yeah, there is no way you're going to win. Discord stared at them in disbelief. Really? I'm not going to win. The elements of harmony are powerless here. You don't even have the ponies with you to wield them anyways. And I have an army! Knowing this was exactly what Tony expected to happen, Rainbow smirked triumphantly. We have a Hulk. A loud, raging roar erupted from behind Discord as a huge green hand seized the spirit of disharmony and began smashing him against the solid deck of the ship. Rainbow fell over on her back, laughing madly at the display, and even Twilight couldn't surpass a few giggles at Discord's predicament. After a few moments of intense smashing, the Hulk finally stopped, Discord lying in a small crater, battered and unconscious. A red and gold blur appeared beside the green beast, the smile particularly shining through the faceplate. Good timing, huh? Never better, Tony, Rainbow replied with a laugh. She then turned to Twilight. Twi? Now would be a good time to try that fail-safe spell of yours. The purple unicorn nodded, lowering her horn. An intense white glow built up around her horn, before bursting out into waves that spread across the ship. Throughout the helicarrier, the chaos magic disappeared. Its caster had no longer been able to keep the spells going. Without the distractions of the strange animals dancing or stampeding, the battle was quickly over. Eventually, all the Avengers and ponies met together on the deck of the helicarrier right beside the Hulk and the crater containing Loki. Twilight smiled upon seeing her friends. None of them sustained any major injuries, just a few bruises here and there. Fluttershy, for some reason, looked particularly murderous, and the purple unicorn decided it would be best not to push her. Thor gazed down at the lifeless body of Discord in the crater. Now that we have defeated Discord, what is to become of him? The demigod asked. He will be sent to try to us, from the depths of which he will not return, a majestic voice stated. A swirling vortex of golden light appeared near them, and from it emerged a figure of Princess Celestia. All 6 ponies bowed low to the ground, and even some of the Avengers dipped their heads in respect. You have done an outstanding job defeating Discord once and for all. Celestia congratulated them. The proud smile on her face, however, quickly disappeared and was replaced by a grave expression. Unfortunately, that was only the beginning. Chapter 8: The Incredible Flutter Hulk. Everybody, ponies and Avengers alike, snapped out of their fatigue at Princess Celestia's words. What do you mean, Princess? Twilight asked her mentor, worried. It appears that the attack of the helicarrier was just a diversion, Celestia explained. While Discord attacked here, Loki launched a much bigger attack in Equestria. Tony removed his helmet to get a better look at the ponies. Twilight seemed to be unable to form words, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Applejack and Rainbow were enraged, both shouting, "What?" Pinkie Pie inhaled an enormous gasp of shock. Fluttershy grew enraged, baring her teeth. A look of horror plastered itself on Rarity's face, her deep blue eyes as white as dinner plates. "We must do something," the white unicorn exclaimed. "Just think of the poor dears, caught completely unaware in the middle of a battle." Celestia nodded. "As for now, Loki's attack has only reached Canterlot and Ponyville, but if we don't hurry, he will take Equestria by storm." "We'll do anything to help, ma'am," Steve stated, dipping his head in respect. Thor nodded in agreement, twirling his hammer in his hand. "Loki will be stopped." The shield agents did not speak, but both reloaded their weapons, signaling that they were ready to fight. The Hulk roared in approval, causing the whole helicarrier to shake. Tony just shook his head in disbelief, an amused smile on his face. "Well, saving a land full of magical ponies certainly wasn't in my job description, but I'm in. You can count on us, Princess," Twilight assured her mentor. "Yeah," Rainbow Dash agreed, a fierce look flashing in her eyes. "Because if we can't protect Harmony, you can be darn sure that we will avenge it." Without another word, the 6 ponies charged through the swirling gold vortex. Steve, Tony, Natasha, Clint, Thor, and the Hulk close behind. They emerged into complete chaos. The din of battle could be heard from inside the main halls of Canterlot Palace, where the portal was located. Several tapirs were burned, and a few of the stained glass windows had been smashed. From the barricades, they could see leviathans and Chitars soaring through the sky, terrorizing the ponies below. The very colors of the world seemed duller, tainted by the colors of war. The 12 sprinted outside, bursting through the heavy main doors. The Royal Canterlot Guards, both day and night, were ferociously warring the Chitar, Princess Luna shooting bolts of dark blue magic from overhead. The ponies were putting up an excellent fight, able to keep the Chitara away from most civilians, but the horde of aliens did not seem to stop. Twilight yelped with joy when she located a familiar purple helmet with a blue chest emerald the battle. "Shining!" the purple unicorn exclaimed, running to her big brother. Shining Armor rolled around, lowered his horn in a defensive position, but the stallion relaxed upon seeing who had called him. "Tway!" he shouted, quickly embracing her. "I was so worried." "Me too, BFF," Twilight replied, returning the hug for a moment before letting go. "How's the city holding up?" she questioned, firing a bolt of magic at an oncoming attacker. "We're doing okay, Twilight, but if someone doesn't stop those creatures from coming, we'll lose." Shining Armor paused for a moment, ferociously bucking a Chitar in the chest, sending it flying. "I think they're coming from Ponyville." "We're on it," Twilight declared, giving her brother a salute before galloping off to the others. The Hulk was already leaping into the skies, smashing several hovercrafts while airborne. Fluttershy's teal eyes were narrowed in a vicious expression. The buttered Pegasus bucking and throwing Chitara everywhere. Rarity, Natasha, Clint, and Pinkie Pie were back to back to back to back, each firing their respective weapons. Both Tony and Rainbow Dash had smashed had slammed on their helmets, whirling through the clouds in a aerial combat. Thor brought down a bolt of lightning, decimating the army around him. Quite pleased with the way everyone was fighting and working together, Purple Unicorn whistled loudly to get the team's attention. The Chancellor Guard has the situation handled here, she announced. We need to get to Ponyville, and fast. On it, Rainbow Dash shouted, putting her thrusters on full blast. Tony followed in suit. Within minutes, both could feel the sound barrier pushing against them. Come on, the duo grunted simultaneously, putting everything they had into their speed. Energy began to crackle around both of their forms, sparking different colors of a rainbow. Boom! Suddenly, the two middle-hued rains blossomed in the sky. Two rainbows suddenly streaking away from form. What the heck just happened? Tony exclaimed, shocked and quite a bit concerned for his sanity. Man, you just did a sonic rainboom, Rainbow Dash laughed. It's like the sonic boom you told me about, only about 20% cooler. Tony chuckled, shaking his head. And I thought this day couldn't get any stranger. Meanwhile, Thor swung his hammer toward the heavens. Flying off in the direction of the rainbows, Rarity and Twilight both retained their horns, a white aerial shining brightly from them. In a brilliant flash, the remaining Avengers and ponies were teleported into the Ponyville town square. Except, it no longer looked like the town square anymore. Smoke rose from the desecrated buildings, some nearly collapsing in on themselves. Scorch marks littered on the streets, and the ponies were running around in a panic. Trees and foundations were crashed, left to right. Applejack gasped as she saw Chutara attempting running rampant through the streets. Holy haystack! She exclaimed. It's worse than the parasite infestation. Twilight, a voice cried out. Said Purple Unicorn whirled around to see Spike, surrounded by several Chutara platoons, the top left of her library in flames. Spike! Spike, Twilight called back, quickly firing a rose-colored bolts at the attackers. Thor stared at Twilight's assistant cautiously. Is that a dragon? Yes, he's just a baby, Twilight replied, after reading her horn for more magic. But now's really not the time for introductions. A burst of water erupted from her horn, successfully extinguishing the fire. Spike ran up to Twilight, green eyes bloodshot with fear. Twilight, he panted. A huge black hole in the sky. Things pouring out of it. You gotta help! Don't worry, Spike, we're on it, Twilight declared. She turned to face Steve. All right, Captain. What's your plan? Rainbow Dash and Tony landed with a clank beside them just as Thor, too, rejoined the group. Yeah, Capskull. Your call. Tony agreed. The captain nodded, surveying the area. All right. Our main priority is to close the portal. Loki seems to be bringing a bigger army than he did in the previous battles. We also need to help the other ponies get the heck out of here, Twilight added. Rarity, Natasha, you up for the job? Of course, darling, Rarity responded, with a flick of her mane. Natasha nodded in agreement. Sure, it'll be fun. Oh, I like fun, Pinkie Pie shouted. What can I do? You and Clint are our snipers, Steve stated. Get to the highest point you can you can and shoot down enemies from there. Call out patterns and strains. Clint nodded, notching an arrow on his high-tech bow. A bright smile beamed across Pinkie Pie's face. Okie dokie, oops, I can't say that anymore. The two archers sped off down the street, Rarity and Natasha close behind. Applejack turned to the two clad in metal armors. Stark, Rainbow, y'all need to watch the perimeter. If anything gets out of Ponyville, turn it back or turn it to ashes. Aye aye, Rainbow Dash replied, giving the duo a salute before zooming off with her partner. I shall find Loki, Thor declared. I have much to settle with him. I'll locate the portal, Twilight added. Hopefully my magic will be enough to close it. Applejack nodded her head in agreement. Y'all do that. The captain and I will stay on the ground, doing the best we can to help. And Hulk? Fluttershy? The captain called out, gaining the attention of the two extremely angry creatures. Do what you do best. A furious smile spread across the Hulk's green face. Hulk smash! He roared, springing into the air. A fierce smile. No. Twilight. No. Treat me like a pushover, and you'll get the once over, Fluttershy said, launching toward the nearest hovercraft. She landed hard on the platform, her eyes blazing with her trademark stare. The Chitara coiled beneath it, leaving the Pegasus a chance to ferociously buck them to the ground. Fluttershy swiftly leapt off the hovercraft, plummeting into the earth, crashing and exploding in a fiery cloud. Meanwhile, on the ground, Captain America and Applejack were battling for their lives against the Legion of Chitara storming the city. Cap, watch your back! Applejack cried, diving behind him, shield aloft. The shining crimson circle deflected the energy blast easily, redirecting it into the bottom of a hovercraft. Apparently the Chitara had no protection against their own weapons built into their ships. The craft exploded with a brilliant flash of fire. Smirking proudly, the orange earth pony whirled up her lasso on one of the buildings. Yeehaw! She shouted as she pushed off of the ground. Gracefully, she swung around the building. Powerful hind legs extended in front of her. Applejack whooped with glee as she bashed Shovel Chitara in the side of the chest, successfully encapping many a foe. She wasn't one of the best apple buckers Ponyville has seen for nothing. Great work, Applejack, Steve commented, hurling his star-spangled shield across another squadron of attackers. Applejack blushed slightly at the praise. Thanks, Sugar Cube, she replied, galloping over and tossing Captain America's shield back to him. I reckon you're doing quite well yourself. With all the force the Earth Pony mustered, she flung her shield at the captains. The circular disc relaunched violently off of the other, tearing through several ranks of Chitara. I think we make a good team, Applejack smiled, retrieving her shield and taking a stand beside the captain. Steve nodded and grinned. That we do. Are you sure about this, Scootaloo? The orange Pegasus filly whirled around to face her two friends. Of course I am, Apple Bloom, she replied confidently. I mean, we can earn real cool cutie marks for this. I don't know, Scootaloo. This seems kind of dangerous, Sweet Pie stared, looking around at the panicked scene. Besides, what would a cutie mark for this even look like? What could what would the talent even be called? Ah, come on, you two, stop being such scaredy cats, Scootaloo whined, eagerly hopping onto her scooter and zipping off onto the battlefield. Hey, Scootaloo, wait up! Apple Bloom cried, galloping after the speeding Pegasus. Sweetbell close behind. The or the fi- the Pegasus filly paid them no mind, continuing to whiz through the streets, expressively dodging falling rubble. Suddenly she stopped, causing both Applebloom and Sweetbell to collide comically with her. What happened? Applebloom questioned. Why do y'all stop? There. That. Applebloom and Sweetie Belle followed their friend, shocked gaze to the skies, where they had met with a tremendous sight. A huge black rent in the sky above them had opened, several green creatures pouring out and attacking the civilians of Ponyville. The very ground seemed to shake as a monstrous mechanical beast wrenched itself through the hole, heading straight towards the three terrified Cutie-Mark Crusaders. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea, Scootaloo said. Apple Bloom looked intently at her friend. Ya think? Suddenly the ground tumbled as a hulking green thing prowled across the street and leapt at the Leviathan, smashing onto its back as the Hulk tore at the beast's back. A yellow blur ferociously sped past the Cutie Mark Crusaders, panting her hooves on the monstrous snout. The pony's teal eyes seemed to crackle with anger as she stared into the Leviathan's eyes. The combined force of the Hulk reaching into its back and Fluttershy's stare caused the metal beast to quickly fall to the ground, tossing into pieces of rubble and dirt as it skidded into a halt a few feet away from the Crusaders. Girls, let's get out of here, Sweetbell exclaimed, not waiting for the others to follow as she galloped wildly away from the Leviathan's wreck. Evidently came across a very familiar, colorful cannon sitting amongst the chaos of the battle. Is that Pinkie Pie's party cannon? Suddenly, a black arrow whirled down, striking the cannon's fuse thing. Not even Pinkie Pie asked what the point of that was. An immense boom filled the air as the cannon went off, releasing a tremendous shockwave and spread streamers and balloons at the Chutara army with full force. Sweetie Belle was pushed to the ground, watching with terrified eyes at the numerous ranks they were blown away. Infectious laughter suddenly ran from the roof of the town hall, and Sweetie Belle could just make out the bright pink form of Pinkie Pie giggling madly at the scene. Great job, Hucky! The pink pony bubbled. Clint shook his head at Pinkie Pie's nickname for him, notching another black arrow on his bow. No problem, Pinkie, he replied, launching the arrow toward another hovercraft, causing it to explode on impact. From the ground, the three crusaders watched with amazement at the fiery cloud blossomed into the sky. Their captivated gazes were held as two metallic blurs, one red and gold, and the other one blue and silver, rocketed above them, locked in an aerial combat with two Leviathans. Rainbow Dash pulled a swift barrel roll into the air, whirling around for a moment to fire a brilliant energy blast from her hoof. Dash, keep yours intact. No. Dash, keep yours distracted. A robotic voice of Tony called. I have a plan. The Iron Mare watched as Tony blinked to the left, leading the Leviathan straight towards her. Catching onto the play, Rainbow put all power to her thrusters and zoomed towards Tony, her Leviathan closely on her tail. Pull out now! The duo simultaneously shouted, rapidly shooting upwards. Unable to recreate the move, the two Leviathans crashed head on. A mushroom-shaped cloud of flames erupt between them. Iron Man and Rainbow Dash hollered with glee as they whirled around the airborne wreckage, pleased with their work. And that right there proves Rainbow Dash is the awesomest pony in existence, Scootaloo shouted triumphantly. Apple Bloom looked around her nervously. Eyes darted across the scene. Scoots? Hate to burst your bubble, but now's really not the time for this. Let's move. Scootaloo nodded, dragging the wagon from the side of the wrecked building and hooking onto the back of her scooter for the other two fillies. Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle hurriedly leapt inside the wagon, nearly tumbling out in their haste. Scootaloo put everything she had into her wings, and with a familiar buzzing filled the air as the scooter whizzed down the street and hopefully out of the battle zone. As the trio passed by Sugar Cube Corner, Sweetie Belle almost received whiplash as she whirled her head around in an attempt to get a good look at one of the figures fighting off a Chitara. Is that Rarity? The unicorn's head flickered as she heard her younger sister call her name. But by that time, Rarity had scanned the area for Sweetie Belle, and Scootaloo's scooter had already whisked away the three Cutie Mark Crusaders. I do hope she's safe, Rarity mused herself, forcing her magic on her gem weapon as her gem weapon. She fired a spray of solid gems into the enemy. Natasha ducked and rolled to her side. The two ladies shooting down Chitara left and right. Then Rarity crouched low to the ground before springing upwards, performing a perfectly executed black flip over her partner and targeting the Chitara behind the Russian. Houston, we have a problem, Tony's voice cracked through the comlink. We've spotted Loki. He's on what looks like the mother of all ships. The portal machine right next to him, Rainbow added. Looks like we'll need to get past Loki in order to shut it down. And we have to get past a herd of Leviathans to get him. Several of the team opened their mouths in response to Tony and Rainbow. As a vic- vicious slur cut them off. "That big, dumb meanie is mine!" Fluttershy growled, and within moments, a yellow blur could be seen soaring up to a massive gray blob on the horizon, and the source of the portal, and her tone told everyone to back off. Loki smirked maliciously as he gazed upon the glorious battle happening below. The mothership of the Chutara was high above the ground, too high for that massive green brute they called the Hulk to reach, and heavily guarded by several leviathans swarming out of the portal above him, which certainly were able to deter the pesky fighters clan in metal. None of the Avengers, or those pathetic ponies, had fought beside them could defeat him in this position. Poor Loki did not know just how wrong he would be. The god of mischief chuckled in amusement as he saw the yellow Pegasus flying towards him. With an almost lazy flick of his hand, he sent forth a pair of leviathans to intercept her. Suddenly, the pony's teal eyes blazed with fury, causing both leviathans to retreat from the pony in fear. Cowards, Loki thought angrily, withstanding the pony's stare. Fluttershy landed firmly on the deck of the mothership, glaring at the god of mischief, snoring steams from her nostrils. Loki laughed at the sight. "So this is what your so-called hero sent me?" he crowed. "The weakest, most timid of all ponies?" The long pink mane of the Pegasus whipped in her face as she pawed at the floor. Angered by Loki's words. "You laugh at me? I wrath at you!" she screamed. In a blink of an eye, Fluttershy had seized the end of Loki's green cape with her mouth and began swinging him in circles around her. With one final grunt, she flung the god of mischief off the ship, completely ignoring his weeping. "Thor, now!" Twilight shouted. Seeing Loki flying through the air away from the ship, Thor nodded, lowered to the ground. Twilight doing the same with her horn, her eyes closed with concentration. Storm clouds began to clean in the sky, and lightning struck down to the earth in a bolt of white light. Through Twilight's horn began to emit a blazing rose glow. Light swirled around the lightning bolt. Suddenly, Twilight's eyelids snapped open, revealing her eyes to be glowing pure white. Thor loosened the magical charged bolt of lightning, slamming into the mothership with a defending clap of thunder. The mothership was erupted in a bright flash, the portal above it swiftly closing as the machine that created it was destroyed. Debris spread everywhere as the Chitauri and Leviathan fell to the ground, unable to function now that the mothership was gone. Twilight collapsed to the ground, exhausted from the effort. All around her, ponies emerged from their buildings, cheering, clapping for their heroes, and already beginning to rebuild the town. A thankful sigh escaped her lips. It was finally over. Epilogue. A day off. The main hall of Canterlot Castle was filled with ponies, all cheering for the 12 heroes as they walked down the aisle to Princess Celestia. All were still in their suits, except for Bruce and Fluttershy. Masks were removed so all could see the faces of their heroes. Tributes blared as in a wonderful fanfare as the Avengers and ponies came before the princess. In the shadows, director Nick Fury was watching the ceremony, a rare smile on his face. Princess Celestia stood tall above the crowd, beaming proudly at the group before her. We are gathered here today to honor the bravery of these 12 heroes who once again defeated the villains Loki and Discord. Together their teamwork saved not only one, but 2 worlds from the grip of chaos. The crowd erupted into cheers, shouting and stomping their hooves. Bruce and Fluttershy smiled sheepishly at all the attention, while Tony and Rainbow Dash were positively soaking up the praise. A pleased grin settled onto Thor's face. The expression mirrored on Twilight's face. Rarity was beaming brilliantly, white cheeks slightly tinted with a blush. Clint and Natasha were standing together, Clint's arm around her shoulders. Both agents wearing a small smile rarely seen by S.H.I.E.L.D. personnel. Pinkie Pie, meanwhile, was bouncing up and down, a bright grin on her face. Hey, do you know what this calls for? She asked, not waiting for an answer. A party! From seemingly out of nowhere, the fuchsia pony yanked out her party cannon, aiming it at the center of the room. Almost instantly, all the Avengers and ponies ducked down, knowing full well the damage a blast could cause. Oh, don't worry, silly willies, Pinkie giggled. I put it on a gentle setting. That thing has a gentle setting? Rainbow Dash asked, having been on the receiving end of a blast. Well, duh, Pinkie Pie replied. I mean, otherwise it could easily destroy the whole place where I want to party. And without further ado, Pinkie Pie slammed her brilliant pink hoof onto the fuse button thing. A blast of confetti issued forth, obscuring everyone's vision for a second. When the cloud of colorful paper finally settled down, a collective gasp was heard as every pony saw the newly transformed hall. Balloon streamers of every hue decor the ceiling, and the tables were covered with all kinds of delicious party treats. Celestia smiled as music began playing from a DJ booth, and the ponies everywhere began enjoying the impromptu celebration. Tony just stood in awe for a few moments, blinking in surprise. And all this came from inside a cannon? Rainbow Dash chuckled. After a while, you just learn to not question it. She flew a few feet away into the air, deactivating her suit, as it swiftly changed back into a vest. She motioned to Tony. Well, are you going to join the party or not? I never miss a good party, Tony replied with a smirk, even if it's a random party thrown by an even more random pink pony. The party continued on for quite some time, everyone, humans and ponies alike, enjoying the festivities. Many of the Avengers were swarmed with questions from the ponies, most never having even seen humans before. The ponies were also bombarded with inquiries about how they managed to save Equestria not once but 3 times. Eventually, though, the inquiries began to die down and the 12 heroes were allowed some peace. Twilight Sparkle finally was able to find her brother Shine Armor in the crowd, and the two shared a joyful reunion, both extremely thankful that the other had not received any serious injuries. Shortly afterwards, the shortly afterwards the purple unicorn stepped outside into the gardens for a breath of fresh air. Princess Luna had just raised the moon, the stars glittering above in the purple express of the sky. Speaking of the princesses, where was Princess Celestia? She must have slipped out of the celebration, but why? The silhouette of a tall human caught her eye. She slowly approached, realizing it to be Thor. The Asgardian turned to see the purple unicorn approaching him. "Ah, Lady Twilight," he remarked, returning his gaze to the heavens. "What a wonderful night it is tonight." "It is indeed," Twilight replied. "Princess Luna really outdid herself tonight." She came to sit by the god of thunder. The pair sat in silence for a moment. "Hey, Thor, have you seen Princess Celestia?" she finally asked. "I don't know where she went." I spoke with the princess a few moments ago," Thor answered. "She is leaving for Asgard to return Loki to prison and speak with my father, Odin. I offered to accompany her, but she said I should stay and enjoy the festivities. I was going to return to the celebration, but I stopped here to admire the heavens. You say your Princess of the Night designs the sky every night, correct?" Twilight nodded. "Yes, she brings out every star in the sky and raises the moon. On some nights, she'll even put out a shooting star. It's really underappreciated sometimes." "Indeed," Thor agreed, "but we are appreciating it now, are we not?" The god of thunder paused for a moment, recalling a story his mother once told him. "It is said that from all realms are beneath the same blaze of stars, connected the skies above. No matter where you or your companions are, all you need to do is to gaze at the heavens, knowing that your friends see the same." Twilight gazed at the god of thunder. "Is that what you do, Thor, when you miss your friends not on Asgard?" Thor nodded. A sudden pensive look on his face. "Lady Twilight, may I ask a favor for you?" Meanwhile, back inside the hall, Rainbow Dash and Tony sat together, both sporting huge grins of joy. "Well," Rainbow Dash remarked, flying up a few feet, stretching her front hooves as she yawned, "I think I'm just going to take the day off tomorrow, Tony." "You know, that sounds like a wonderful idea, Dashy." Tony smiled. "I think we all deserve some time off." And so the next day, all the Avengers and ponies gathered together in the hall to see each other off on their vacations. Fluttershy volunteered to stay in Equestria to help treat some of the injured ponies, and Bruce, being the doctor that he is, agreed to stay with her. Rarity, Natasha, Clint, Pinkie Pie, Steve, Applejack, Tony, Rainbow Dash, Thor, and Twilight were all returning to the helicarrier, if only for a few moments. The 10 all lined up in front of the swirling golden vortex, Fluttershy and Bruce watching them from the side. "We'll see you tomorrow," Bruce remarked, waving goodbye to the 10. A small grin spread across Fluttershy's face. "Bye, every pony." The 10 all said their goodbyes to the two before stepping through the portal, disappearing in the flash of golden light. After all departed, Bruce turned to the yellow pony, Pegasus. "So, are you ready to go?" he asked. Fluttershy jumped, slightly surprised. "Oh, yes." A soft smile tagged on the corners of Bruce's mouth as he began following Fluttershy to the medical ward of the castle, where all the ponies that were injured in the fray were resting. A sudden question came into the doctor's mind. His curiosity getting the better of himself. "Fluttershy, why are you doing this?" he inquired. "Doing what?" the Pegasus asked. Bruce gestured the surrounding area. "Staying here and helping. I would have thought you would have gone with your friends." "Oh," Fluttershy replied, her smile dropping like stone. She walked over to a bench and plopped down, her head drooping down like a sad puppy. Bruce came and sat by her side, a concerned expression on his face, though he didn't say anything. After a few moments, Fluttershy spoke. "I promised myself that I would never let nasty Fluttershy strike again," she explained, her voice barely a whisper. "But I did. I let nasty Fluttershy take over again, and then several times more. I'm afraid that some of the damage I caused may have hurt some of the other ponies." Bruce nodded, understanding exactly how the yellow Pegasus mare was feeling. "The same feeling happens to me every single time the other guy comes out. I try to do right to right the wrong I do when I become the other guy, but sometimes I can't." He paused, heavily in a sigh. "But you eventually learn how to control it. To control your other guy. And then you are able to help people instead of hurting them." Fluttershy turned to the doctor, her teal eyes widened. Does that work? "It did for me," Bruce replied with a smile. "Now come on, I'm sure there are ponies who need our help." The buttered Pegasus nodded, her spirit brightened. "Right. Thor, are you ready?" The blonde god of thunder nodded to the purple unicorn, showing the mare a picture of the location they were to be traveling to. Thor would have traveled there himself using the hammer, but unfortunately his sense of Midgard's direction was quite a bit off, and he was not sure he would end up in the correct place. "Do you believe you will be able to make it?" Thor asked, concerned. "I think so," Twilight replied. "Just let me concentrate." She squeezed her eyelids shut, forcing all of her magical energy into her horn. Once again, a rosy glow began to surround the pair, and with a brilliant flash of light, the two found themselves in their desired location. To Twilight, there was nothing special about this place. It was a wide expanse of sand, empty except for a large machine shaped like a rectangular box with a cone-like spear protruding from the top, and the one lone lady attending to it. The woman seemed quite young for a human. In Twilight's eyes, with straightened brown hair brushing into her face as she pursued herself to work. The purple unicorn was reminded of herself working in the library as she watched the young human bustle around the machine. Thor, meanwhile, had the broadest of grins plastered onto his face. "Lady Jane!" he cried, rushing over and embracing the young woman. Jane blinked in surprise, her face frozen in shock. "Thor?" She said, You're back." "I have returned to Midgard, but only for a while," the Asgardian replied. "I'm afraid I can only return when this world needs my help." Jane nodded, her expression deepened for a moment before brightening once more. "Thor, I'm just really happy I can see you again." "As am I, Jane." Thor stated sincerely. He then turned to Twilight, who was beginning to find the situation awkward on her end. "Lady Twilight, I cannot thank you enough." He released the young scientist and began introductions. "Jane, I would like you to meet Twilight Sparkle, a wonderful unicorn mare from the realm of Equestria. She has been my companion in battle several times and has also helped me find you once more." Twilight blushed slightly at Thor's praise. Hi. Nice to meet you, Twilight Sparkle." Jane replied, beaming, whence explained the unicorn with interest. "I'm Jane." "Just Twilight is all right, Jane." The pony stared, gazing up at the woman. "Tell me, what's the machine you're working on?" Twilight gestured to the large machine behind them. "Oh, this? It's a machine that's supposed to recreate the Einstein-Rosa bridge," Jane explained. Twilight's eyes widened in fascination. "You mean it's supposed to create a wormhole to allow you to travel across space?" Jane's eyes shot up in surprise. Eyebrows shot up in surprise. "You heard of it?" Twilight nodded eagerly. "Well, then maybe you can help me with a little problem I'm having with this." She stepped over to the side of the machine and opened one of the panels, revealing a large engine. "See this? This is supposed to generate the power to create the bridge. However, I'm still not able to produce enough power to successfully make it." "So you have an energy problem?" Twilight asked. Jane nodded. The purple unicorn put her hoof on her chin and thought, "Well, I think I may be able to help you out with this. I could just use my magic to create raw energy like I did for Rainbow Suit, but I'd have to alter it slightly to fit this. Do you think I could give this a try?" "You can trust Twilight Sparkle, Jane," Thor reassured the young scientist. "She will do everything in her power to help you, and will not intentionally bring harm to you or your things." Jane sighed. "All right, Twilight, go ahead." The unicorn nodded, once more forcing all of her energy into her horn. Instead of beginning to create a magenta glow, however, her horn began crackling with blue light. Without warning, a bright beam of white light erupted from her horn, striking inside the generator. A few moments later, Twilight collapsed to the ground, panting heavily. I think it worked. Amazed and excited by Twilight's display of magic, Jane hurriedly rushed to the controls of the machine, bending over the dashboard. Everything is up and running, she informed them. Whatever you did, Twilight, it's giving this an incredible power boost. I think it may actually work. She gasped. She grasped. She grasped a lever tightly, slowly pulling it down into on position. The entire machine began erupting intensively as a bolt of bluish green light shot out into the sky, clouds beginning to swirl around it as the light seemed to break through the heavens themselves. An immense smile spread across Thor's face as he gazed up at the beam. It looks just like Bifrost, he began. The same pool of magic connecting the worlds together. The energy levels are still holding, Jane announced. Jane, may we test it? I don't know, Thor, Jane answered. I've never been able to test it before, but if you say it feels like Bifrost's magic, then I guess it would be alright. She straightened up, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I'll stay here to monitor it if anything happens to go wrong. If anything begins to go wrong, I'll warn you. Thor nodded before returning to Twilight, offering his hand. Lady Twilight, would you like to see Asgard? Twilight could not put into words how traveling across the bridge felt. It was strange and unnatural, yet it had a unusual feeling of comfort to it. Rainbow light danced through her vision as she traveled next to Thor, the blonde god, sporting a huge smile. Suddenly, Twilight felt solid ground beneath her hooves. The multicolored glow faded from around her, and the sight that met the unicorn's eye took her breath away. The pair was standing on what appeared to be a glass bridge, rainbow light racing beneath the surface. In the distance, a tall golden spears of a castle reached up to the sky, glistening in the fading sunlight. Several others, simply gorgeous buildings, dotted the skylight, and the faint shape of a crescent moon was imprinted onto the heavens. Wow, Thor, Twilight breathed. I've never seen anything like it. It is truly magnificent, Thor agreed. Welcome, Thor, and Twilight to Asgard. A deep rumbling voice greeted. Twilight turned to see a tall, dark-skinned man approaching them, clad completely in shiny gold armor. His eyes were an unnatural shade of glowing orange and gold, and in his hands rested a mighty sword. Heimdall, Thor smiled, strutting over to the guardian of Asgard. Twilight remained still, unsure of what to make of this newcomer. Thor, Helmgard stated before gesturing to the glass bridge. Look. If possible, Thor's grin became even wider. Beyond Twilight Sparkle, the rainbow bridge stretched far into space. Instead of halting, cranking and jiggling, the merger had smashed into it. The Brisfoss was repaired, he gasped. Helmdell nodded before fixing his attention to the small purple pony. Come near, Twilight Sparkle. There is no need to fear. Hesitantly, Twilight stepped near the gold-clad god, looking up at him with wide, violet eyes. The gatekeeper was incredibly intimidating, radiating power and majestic. Yes, Helmdale? She stuttered, using the name Thor had used to address him before. I have seen all you have done, Twilight Sparkle, Helmdale replied. You are the bearer of the element of magic, a most powerful thing indeed. You have triumphed over evil many times, and for that may be may are grateful. A huge a smile slowly crept into Helmdale's lips as he continued. You are much more powerful than you think, young Twilight. Though you may not know it yet, you will accomplish great things. Helping to repair Breastfoss is only the beginning of a greater journey you and many others will share. Twilight gazed at the all-seeing in mute amazement. It was only the beginning. Steve strolled through the halls of the helicarrier, his duffel bag sagging against his shoulder. The captain had swiftly changed it out of his suit and was now making his way to the gym. When he arrived, however, he did not expect to meet someone else there as well. Howdy, Captain, Applejack greeted from the punching bag she was at. Steve sat down his bag on a bench. Hi, Applejack. I didn't expect you to be here. Well, I thought I ought to brush up on my bucking, she replied, raising her hind legs thrusting them at the bag. The punching bag was sent flying into the air, swinging back to meet the earth pony's hooves once more. Fury said this would be the best place to train. Well, he's not wrong, Steve stated. He quickly wrapped his hand and hung a punching bag on a hook, just waiting to be knocked down. Would you mind if I turned on the radio? Not at all, Cap, Applejack answered cheerfully. I would have done myself, but I don't have any hands. Steve chuckled at the Earth Pony's remark before turning the button on the antique radio he had brought. It reminded him of home. It reminded him of his home. And besides, he still couldn't figure out how to work those new contraptions anyway. As he expected, the news was on, covering Discord and the Loki attack on the city. Several alien creatures terrorized the streets, the reporter announced. Beside them were many freaks of nature, such as dancing buffalo in tutus and herds of giant rabbits stampeding down the streets. Many say this has to do with the strange weather occurrences around the area, but the question is, who caused it? That mudslick Discord. That's who, Applejack muttered, kicking her bag in anger at the memory. Steve winced as he remembered his time underneath Discord's trickery, but he had resolved to put that behind him now. He would not try to think of it anymore, like how he tried not to think of Coulson's death anymore. Thankfully, the reporter continued, the Avengers were there once again to save the day, but they were not alone. A group of strange, small, colorful horses also accompanied them. Not as mounts, but as helpers in the fight. Some witnesses say that they had the ability to talk, and that some of their horns and some had horns and pair of wings, and others pair of wings. Scientists believe that these ponies were the result of a freak mutation in the genetic code of horses. Several skeptics are rejecting the idea, saying that it's impossible for some small cartoonish things to become here. The rest of the radio broadcast was cut off as the punching bag flew off its hook and collided with the radio, successfully shutting it off, at the least. Steve turned to Applejack, who was sneering and glaring hatredly at the radio. He crouched down, attempting to comfort the angered pony. Hey, don't listen to what they say, he stated, looking straight in Applejack's eyes. Those reporters, they're completely wrong. Look at Fluttershy. Everyone thought she was just a timid, weak pony, but she ended up being the one who stopped Loki for good. Steve sighed, reaching out a hand on the orange pony's shoulder, and putting it on the earth pony's shoulder. A long time ago, I was taught that what makes you a hero is not just what's on the outside, it's also what's in your heart. Your feelings, motivation, bravery, that's what makes you and your friends true heroes. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Steve smiled, rising to his feet. Now come on, I bet I can knock down more punchy bags than you can. A smirk plastered itself on Applejack's face. You're on, partner. Woohoo! Two whoops of joy filled the city as two streaks of light, one red and the other blue, darted across the sky like a pair of shooting stars. Rainbow Dash and Tony were back in their suits, having a grand time as they raced through the New York City skyline. Both were hurling at incredible speeds, each having broken the sound barrier at least twice. Man, I totally beat you that time, Rainbow Dash shouted as they eventually came to a stop. Really? Because I'm pretty sure I won, Tony retorted, smirking beneath his faceplate. You did not, Rainbow Dash denied. Did so, did not, did so, did not. Tony chuckled at their banter. Well, as much as I'd like to continue our argument, there is something I want to show you. Come on. With a burst of speed, Tony rocketed towards his building, Rainbow Dash close behind. The Stark Tower had been fully restored, the only thing not fixed being the glowing letters plastered on the building's front. The lone A was still there, shining brightly in the night. Tony liked it better that way. The duo touched down on the landing pad simultaneously. At Tony's command, yellow robotic arms began disassembling his armor, removing it from his person to reveal a casual shirt and jeans beneath. Meanwhile, Rainbow Dash had deactivated her armor, the metal pieces folding neatly away into her vest. Jarvis, Tony called out once both he and Dash had removed their suits. Yes, sir, Jarvis answered, his robotic and surprisingly British voice. Rainbow's eyes widened when Jarvis answered, the sea and Pegasus laying out an impressed whistle. Man, I seriously need to get one of those. Well, Dashy, Jarvis is mine, Tony replied. Get your own computerized butler. Suddenly he clapped his hands as if remembering something. Oh, introductions. Jarvis, meet Rainbow Dash, fellow world saver. I want you to bring up the plans for the Avengers mansion. Right away, sir, Jarvis responded as the duo sat down on Tony's overly plush couch. Immediately, the coffee table in front of them was illuminating with several three-dimensional blueprints of a huge house on the coast of California, according to the map in the left corner of the display. This is my old house in Malibu, Tony explained, enlarging the model of the building. Snazzy, huh? Without waiting for a reply, Tony continued. Well, since I'm living in this beautiful tower now, I decided to put this to good use. He waved his hand, changing a few of the room dimensions and adding a bit more detail to the inside. One floor was completely dedicated to a training room. and a shooting range was added in the basement. Several of the seemingly empty rooms now had beds in them, and the kitchen was expanded greatly. These are the plans for the Avengers residence, he announced, spinning the model around a few times. I think it looks really nice. His smile grew as he waved his hand once more, more additions falling into place. 6 more rooms were filled with beds. An enormous library was added to the left side, and a beautiful garden was scheduled to be filled with several small critters appeared outside. But after the recent events, I decided to add some more changes. What are these for? Rainbow inquired. They're for you guys, of course, Tony replied simply. I mean, you are the Avengers now, aren't you? Rainbow Dash paused for a moment, a wide grin slowly spreading across her face. Yeah, I guess we are, she answered. We're the Avengers of Harmony.